there is mounting pressure for the current US President Joe Biden to step down as the party's designated nominee and instead to allow someone else to run on the Democratic ticket against former President Trump in the November election. Well, tonight, as we speak to you, the Washington Post is reporting that Nancy Pelosi, the influential former Speaker of the US House of Representatives, has told House Democrats that Mr. Biden could be persuaded to leave the 2024 race in the coming days. The Washington Post reported earlier that former President Barack Obama has also cast doubt on Joe Biden's prospects in November as well. Barack Obama reportedly told allies that he believes Joe Biden's path to victory has greatly diminished and that Joe Biden needs to seriously consider the viability of his candidacy. Another strong Joe Biden ally, Maryland Congressman Jamie Raskin, has also urged the president to rethink his campaign. He has said, "The judgment you must make is not only a private medical judgment about how you feel, but a public political one about how others feel, because in the end, it's the people who will decide the fate of this election and of our democracy itself." That's a statement from Congressman Raskin. Well, the New York Times is also reporting tonight that people close to the president say he has accepted the idea that he may need to drop out of the race, but that he has told his aides he is still determined to stay in the race. This, of course, is all happening as Joe Biden is self-isolating at his home in Delaware following that COVID diagnosis, which was announced by the White House yesterday. The White House says that today he is still experiencing mild symptoms. They said yesterday that that was a cough and a runny nose, but that he was continuing with his presidential duties. Well, with me now is Mariana Sotomayor, the congressional reporter at the Washington Post, who, along with colleagues, has been reporting tonight on these moves, I suppose, within the Democratic Party. What's the latest, Mariana, that you're hearing, particularly regarding Nancy Pelosi?
Yeah, so there's a lot of moving parts that are happening. I mean, I've heard from multiple sources on Capitol Hill in particular that things are developing quickly and they don't know exactly at this very moment what the conversations are between the president and his inner circle. But as my colleagues have reported, it does seem that Biden is more open to the idea of accepting this. And the reason why is because now he has heard from not just the former House Speaker, Nancy Pelosi, but also in warnings from the current House Minority Leader, Hakeem Jeffries, as well as the Senate Majority Leader, Chuck Schumer, all of them telling him that if he stays atop the ticket, that could affect their chances of keeping the Senate, of potentially flipping the House back to Democratic hands in the long run. And what I've been hearing from Pelosi in particular is that this week, of course, the House is not in session. Many members are back home, including Pelosi, but she has been talking to her California delegation and telling them that she has gotten the sense that it is possible that Biden may step aside. Something that I've also heard from, it's a message from Jeffries, the House Minority Leader, who has told a couple of members in the last couple of days that, stand down on coming out publicly, because we, the House Democratic leaders and potentially Senate leaders as well, are trying to work with Biden to see if there is an exit ramp for him. So all of this developing in the last couple of days.
And there may have been that warning about not coming out publicly, but I don't think that many members have really abided by that, have they? I mean, we've heard from Adam Smith, we've heard from Adam Schiff, and plenty are behind these unnamed sources that are speaking to yourself and other colleagues as well.
Yes, yeah, and Jamie Raskin is significant. I had actually heard and reported last week that there was a committee ranking member who had sent a letter directly to Biden. Of course, it turns out that was Jamie Raskin, and he's not the only one. I've heard that many members, instead of going public, have tried to really reach Biden privately through letters, through trying to talk to the inner circle. But there is this grave concern that some of those messages aren't being received by Biden. It's something else that my White House colleagues have been reporting, is that his inner circle, it's always been small, but it's only getting smaller. And they're still pretty defiant and are really hoping that Biden can still stay in. But again, there's this general acknowledgement of a change in tone even by that smaller circle and the president himself.
Is there any indication that the president might be minded to take heed of what he's being told by erstwhile allies of his?
Based on what we've heard from Capitol Hill, and this is coming from members who have talked to those who are speaking closely to that inner circle, it seems like Biden is somewhat more open to hearing these concerns. Something that I've been told is to pay attention who is going in and out potentially for hope. I think that the president is isolating. That does not mean that he's not having meetings. So that is what's happening hour by hour, minute by minute. And a lot of us, including, I would say, members on Capitol Hill, trying to find out exactly the contours of those conversations right now.
Is there a potential timeline on this? I mean, obviously the RNC is underway here. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is due in Washington, D.C. next week. We know he is a close ally of Joe Biden as well. And then you're headed into the selection process and the DNC itself.
Right. I have not heard of a specific timeline, but based on my conversations that I've had with lawmakers, they're hoping this ends sooner rather than later. Many members feel like they see the writing on the wall. They're hoping that Biden sees that writing on the wall. But like you mentioned, there's just so much that's going to continue to happen on Capitol Hill. And I have heard that if Biden does not decide to step aside this weekend, there will be a significant number of members who could come out publicly to make their displeasure known by next week.
That sounds like there is no way out of this for Joe Biden, that the party has decided he has to go, and it's just how at this point.
Yeah, and when you talk to the Biden campaign, and when you talk to, there are still members on Capitol Hill very supportive of the president. They point out, what they're hearing from voters or constituents is they still want him to stay in. What they want is for the party to unify. And there are some voters out there, some Democratic voters, who want the party to still stay behind Biden because they're seeing this, right? They're seeing this unification here at the RNC, at the convention, Republicans coming together. They're very worried of that split screen. As one House Democrat told me yesterday, there's this split screen of unification among Republicans, and what are Democrats going to do? A virtual roll call over Zoom potentially to try and nominate someone that we may not all agree with? There is a lot of worry on that front as well.
Okay, Mariana, thanks for that. We're also joined here by Stephanie Murphy, former Democratic Congresswoman from Florida. Stephanie, what do you make of what we've heard in the last hours, I won't even say day, the last number of hours about this pressure building on Joe Biden from those senior allies like Nancy Pelosi?
Certainly the pressure appears to be building, but you haven't seen either Pelosi, Schumer, or Obama actually come out with their own statement. All you're hearing about is sort of secondhand, unnamed sources. And I know this is an incredible shock to the media, but sometimes elected officials use the media as a pawn in their Game of Thrones. And so in pushing a narrative that, it's going to happen may just be what people want to believe is going to happen as opposed to what is actually happening. But there does seem to be an amping up of the pressure because previously it was behind the scenes and the leaks were not at this level with the media. Now that these leaks are getting out to the media, that tells me that people are getting more agitated and there's a building. Ironically, it may be working against them because these members who might come out with their own public statements are like, well, if it's going to happen on Sunday, I'm just going to hold back. But why take the risk of coming out against a sitting president if it's going to happen anyway? And really, the effort to create the pressure to have Biden make this decision requires more voices being public.